like 16 different topics, right? So I was so far behind when I graduated from law school. So many people tell me this. It all came together when they
So did you
studied
give
at the
candy
bar.
out last night for
So
Halloween?
I started
We
studying
did, and we
December
had like 15
26th,
kids. That was it.
and
You
the
know,
bar exam was
it's
on
like
February
nobody.
28th, and I had a really cool boss who let me just come in. Like I managed a small group of people. He said, as long as everything's
Yeah,
going okay, just
yeah.
come in,
It's like you're not
a
gonna.
few mornings a week. And for that period of time, I
I think
studied
that
a
happened.
minimum
Yeah, I think that may have happened on
of
our street.
10
I think there
hours a
was only
day,
a couple of us with our lights on,
every day.
and you know,
And
and
but I
houses are
made a
spaced
decision
out, so it's
early
not
in
really the best
Michigan at the
neighborhood
time.
if you
If you
really want to
scored in the
clean up.
top
You know,
10% of the multi-state, they
but
only looked at your
but
essays just to
it
see,
was
make
it was
sure you
sad
did that
after that with
and,
too many
and made
kids.
an effort, but they didn't
I always
score
like
them.
seeing the capsules. You know, kids coming
So I
out.
made a decision. I was going to put it all. I made a decision I was going to put it all on the multi-state, and I forgot about it, and I didn't study any of the rest of it. So it was so funny because everybody else was sweating it out, and on the essay part, I was like just making stuff up. And in the case of Emerson versus Lake, I scored in the top 10%.
The Plymouth Township Planning Commission meeting will come to order at 7:01, and Secretary, please call the roll.
Sure, Mr. Chairman, I'll call the roll in the place of Gail Grieger, our
Right.
secretary. All right, 7:01. Dennis Sabalski?
Here.
Kendra Barberina is here. Gail Grieger is excused. Bob Dorshevitz?
Here.
Tim Boyd?
Here.
James Berry?
Here,
And David Ladewick?
Here.
Ladewick.
Okay, and is there a motion to approve this evening's agenda? I have no changes.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the agenda as submitted.
Support.
Moved by Commissioner Barberina and supported by Commissioner Boyd to approve the agenda as submitted. I'll try to move the mic. So there was a motion to approve the agenda for tonight by Commissioner Barberina and supported by Commissioner Boyd. Is this better? Can you hear me better? Oh, okay, I'll try to raise my voice. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. What about the approval of the minutes?
It says it'll be November 15th.
Okay. Is there anyone here that wishes to speak on a non-agenda item? Okay. Hearing none. Okay, yeah, if you can come up to the podium.
You know, my wife and I don't probably need a mic or whatever, but I'm too loud anyway.
But it's recorded, so it will.
Oh, I got you. Okay. Well, we have a question about where I forget what that, right there on Ann Arbor Road, they're tearing it all up. They're really going to town over there. I'm wondering, what is that going to become now? Is that going to become apartments too?
We're in Ann Arbor Road.
Ann Arbor Road, boy, help me, somebody. The what? The Elks, yeah, the Elks. I keep getting them confused with the
Yeah,
VFW and whatnot.
it's gonna be apartments and townhomes.
Okay, and then we're talking about apartments at this other place too. You know, it's like apartments everywhere. Nobody's building houses anymore. Is that what it's going to come to now?
Well, we'll talk about that and the
Okay, I
agenda
just
when we
wanted to
got.
see. So you do know that that's going to be apartments, huh? Do I need to sign that?
It's been approved. It was approved several months
I don't.
ago.
Where's a pen? Thank you. Okay.
Under new business, we have application 2459 to Plymouth Exchange, a request for a site plan extension. And Ms. Hall, do you want to fill us in on that?
Thank you, Chairman Sobolski. Evening, Commissioners. This application is an industrial project on the site that's known as Lot 10 of the Michigan International Technology Center. So this would be the southeast corner of 5 Mile Road and Napier Road. Last year, in December of 2022, the Planning Commission reviewed the site plan for this industrial project, which consists of 3 speculative warehouse and office uses, and granted final site plan approval at that time. Since December of last year, the applicant has been working with Wayne County and finalizing their plans, but they haven't completed that process and submitted for a building permit. And they have 1 year from that Planning Commission approval to do so. So in our memo, we provide the language from the zoning ordinance that discusses the expiration of a site plan, and that upon written request, the applicant can request up to a 1 year extension on their approval to seek the rest of their approvals from outside agencies and complete the process, which is known as the final stamp. So the applicant, Cameron Cooper, has supplied a letter to the township, which is enclosed in your packet and details their rationale and requesting the 1 year extension. I'd like to note that no changes are proposed to the site plan at this time. They're just working through their approvals. Cameron Cooper and his company are based in Kansas City, so they are not here this evening, and have provided the letter in lieu. If you find the extension appropriate for the 1 year, which would then expire December 14th, 2024, there is a sample motion to consider on our second page of the memo. Thank you.
I have
Yeah.
a question.
Oh, go ahead.
No,
Can they ask for additional time past the 1 year?
It's just 1 year per the ordinance.
So after 1 year it expires?
It does, and they'd have to
Have to start
reapply under a new application. So they would essentially have 2 years from the original approval to close out their process.
Okay, I was curious because the letter says when the timing is right. So I'm concerned how long it would, like it could be extended, so it's just the 1 year. Okay, thank you.
But just to be clear, the zoning ordinance only allows for one extension.
Correct, yes.
other questions?
Ready for a motion?
You ready for a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move to grant a 1 year extension to PC number 2459, the Plymouth Exchange development, by which the applicant has until December 14th, 2024 to finalize approvals with the township and close out the site plan process.
Is there support?
Support.
Moved by Commissioner Dorchevitz and supported by Commissioner Boyd to grant an extension until December 14th. Was that the date you said? December 14th of 2024. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is application 2474, the Spars Greenhouse. And if you would walk us through your planning report.
Thank you, Chairman. This is a project that the commission is familiar with, having held a public hearing and reviewed the application back of April of this year. This is a revised letter that is included in your packet with a couple key updates. The large majority of the review has stayed the same, but we have omitted any references to the proposed draft master plan and only speak to the 2015 currently adopted master plan. That appeared to be a conflict point. So this relies entirely on your adopted master plan. We also added a paragraph on page 4 that gives a little bit of background to what has happened since April. Upon hearing the comments at the meeting, the applicant did slightly revise what they were proposing to propose on this site, which means that they reduced the building heights, the building footprints, and originally there was talk of a potential drive-through on the site when they first came before you in April, and that has since been eliminated from the discussion. So this would be a true mixed-use building with retail on the ground floor, 2 floors of residential, and that would be at the corner. And then there would be several other buildings on the property, all which had been reduced in scale. So that's what the applicant has revised on their plans. This was presented at a Board of Trustees meeting earlier in October for discussion only. There was no action taken that evening, no action requested. And the applicant is before you tonight for a reconsideration based on the reduction in the scale and intensity of their project. It's not another public hearing. Should you wish to make a motion tonight to the Board of Trustees, it is still a recommendation. They are the final decision makers and have not held an action meeting on this item yet. And the applicant is here tonight to present those changes to the commission with a presentation.
Thank you. And even though it's not a public hearing like we had previously, we'll still take comments from the people following the rules. You'll each have 3 minutes. But we ask you to stick to the 3 minutes, and after everyone has had a chance to speak, you'll be granted another 3 minutes if you so wish. So just to get that housekeeping issue out of the way. And the applicant is here. Okay, if you can come up and.
Good evening. So we were here in April and looking to do a contingent rezoning to pursue a PUD for the Spars property at the corner of Joy and Lily Roads. And I know we've gone through, so this is the subject area that we're talking about. The green area is the Spars property plus one additional property to the north. And what we're looking to do is the owner that is going to maintain Spars, improve the greenhouses and buildings that are on site, and that's already underway. I don't know if you've been by, but they've taken down some greenhouses, and the old greenhouses are going to be replaced with new, more modern ones, and everything updated and fresh. They want to, as Laura mentioned, we thought more about how we want to develop the corner of the property, and this is a concept that is something that we worked on, that the buildings to the southwest corner are the existing Spars greenhouse and sales areas. The building immediately at the corner would be a multi-use building that would have professional office, think chiropractors, dentists, things like that, and then apartments above as a multi-use building. And then the two smaller buildings to the north would be two smaller apartment buildings. The middle one would be a 3-story, the northern one would be a 2-story, so that we're scaling down as we get closer and go further to the north. And then the large building just north of the Spars greenhouse would be another apartment building that would be 3 stories. And then we buffered the northwest corner of the property with the parking. Everything's interconnected. We've reduced it from 4 driveways to 2 driveways to help minimize traffic. We do anticipate working with Wayne County and probably having to widen Lily Road on the west side to accommodate a right turn lane, a drive-through lane, and then a left turn lane. So that will help facilitate traffic movement. As we mentioned before, this makes it a little clearer that we would have underground detention, so no open detention ponds. We're obviously going to detain all of our water on site. We will, again, like we said, improve the corner of the northwest corner of Joy and Lily Roads, and 2 driveways to minimize traffic in and out and significantly enhance the corner of that area of the township. We see it as a benefit that we're going to provide high-end lofts for single and young married professionals. We think it's a great location because of the access to the communities and access to the new Henry Ford Health Center. It will improve our property values in the area. We will also improve stormwater management where there is none now. We will be providing it completely, and we will be improving the roads. So that's a benefit to everybody. And right now, all we're looking for is a recommendation from you to pursue a contingent rezoning to go for a PUD. And then we'll turn right around and be working on that. We'll be back here before you again to present that PUD in a more detailed capacity than what this is. Obviously, that'll be working hand in hand with the planner, with your planning consultant, Wayne County, to make sure that this is something that's going to benefit everybody. And that's what we're looking to do.
Ms. Howe, he is referring to it as a contingent rezoning, but what is a contingent rezoning versus a conditional rezoning?
Oh,
Yes.
it's a conditional rezoning, I'm sorry, I mixed up the C words. It's a conditional rezoning. So that if the PUD doesn't happen, the property remains residential, it won't change. The zoning ordinance does not allow us to pursue a PUD in a residential district, hence the reason we have to do the contingent. It's either C2 or industrial, and we certainly would want to try to do industrial. So, and then it becomes a PUD at that point once it's all final approved, so.
I have one initial comment is, we got the presentation that you presented here. It's virtually impossible to read, how many floors are here and how many apartments. So I had to go to the computer and call up the PDFs and enlarge it. So, it's hard to evaluate.
Well, those were designed to be 24 by 36 inch
Well,
sheets,
that's not
so-
how we got it, so. So altogether, according to my calculation, is it true that there are 68 apartments?
Yes, but that's a best shot guess right now. We're just based on what we could fit on the site with parking and everything else. We're just taking, we're looking at this without a PUD. So we're just doing what we think would be our best shot at making this work. And it probably will be different when we come back, but that's when we're sitting down and working with the planner.
And just so the public understands, we're getting into a lot of site plan discussion here, and we're really not supposed to look at the site plan as much as we are the use of the property. But of course, there's high interest in, what potentially could be here, so that's why we're spending a more time than probably what we should, because there is high public interest in this.
So how do you assess whether it's appropriate to do a conditional rezoning if you don't know what the site plan is going to look like? It seems a little,
I agree, but this is
I
how
know.
it's done.
maybe that's a rhetorical
too, like-
question.
Yeah.
And what is the actual conditions? Like, I don't have a list of conditions that you're offering that I can review or that the public can look at to
That's
say, okay,
because-
here are the conditions.
We don't, you're asking for questions of something that would be the next meeting that we would present, that we would come in with more details, floor plans, more detailed site plans, landscape plans, elevations of the buildings. And we don't do that unless we know we can start a PUD process. And so that's where we're at right now, trying to just start the PUD process.
I guess I struggle with, it's a conditional rezoning, but I don't know what the conditions are.
The condition is if
Or
we
have
do
them in
not
writing.
achieve the PUD. So when we're at the Board of Trustees, if you recommend this and the Board of Trustees approve it, we get 1 year to get a PUD approval. If we do not do that, or at least ask for an extension as we continue to work through this, but if we don't get it, it remains R1. The condition is we get the PUD approval and we get site plan approval for what we come back and present. If we do not get that approval, it all falls back to R1. So the safety net is the conditional rezoning. The rezoning only happens if we get the PUD approval, in which case then it really becomes a PUD, is how it would look on a zoning map. It would be listed as a PUD. It wouldn't be listed as C2. It would be listed as a PUD.
So the question before us really is simpler. Is this appropriate to rezone this C2 from R1?
It's appropriate, is it appropriate to consider rezoning to C2 from R1 in the event that the PUD is thereafter, goes to the next step. That's the conditional aspect of it. This is the process that is in place. We cannot even submit the PUD application unless there is a C2 zoning, which is why it is conditional. If the conditional request is, and to the point that's raised, to the question that was raised, there is only one condition. That is, if the PUD is granted, that's it. There is no other condition. It's not based upon the number of units or parking spots. It is solely based upon whether or not the next step actually comes to fruition. That's it. It's not more complicated than that. And I know that I understand there may be concerns over what it's going to look like. That's the cart before the horse. We don't get to the point of, quite honestly, spending large sums of money to prepare this until we know for sure we can even get to the required zoning under the ordinance. That's why we're here. That's the conditional aspect of it. This is the process we're required to follow. We wouldn't prepare the entire PUD unless we know for sure we even have the correct zoning. That's, but it is conditional. It's not, there's no skin off anyone's nose here. There's no risk. The risk is to the applicant, is to our clients here. That's it.
Well, though, I'm not sure I completely agree with that statement, because once you've opened the door, then the presumption is that you're going to walk through it.
Well, you control whether we walk through it based upon, and as does the Board of Trustees, with respect to the approval of the actual PUD. So we don't have the ability to just walk through the door. We have to ask you if we can walk through the door, but we can't even get to the door unless you conditionally rezone. So you're the gatekeeper. In many respects, this is us asking permission to ask for permission. That's all it is.
Yeah, I realize I'm kind of new on the board here, but that's kind of the way I saw it as I was reading sort of the guidelines for this. Is initially this is sort of just, should they get a shot to make their case? And that's kind of the way I saw it. Not so much as that I'm approving anything. I've heard a lot of the concerns of the neighbors out there, and they may, finally carry the sway on this, although that might be something more appropriately addressed by the elected officials, the trustees. But, I see my role here is to look at the guidelines as they're set forth in the ordinance and so forth, and apply them and see if it makes sense. And unless I'm missing something, that's what I understand this request to be, just a chance to make their case. But I'm certainly open to hear that I'm wrong about that.
I think you are right. I mean, we're here primarily not to look at the site plan, this conceptual plan that we received, but is what they're requesting appropriate for this particular site. But what happens if you were granted this permission and you start developing, putting additional funding into developing a site plan, and then you get the feedback that, well, the buildings are too tall, there are too many buildings, it's too cramped, whatever reason it is, then what would you do? Drop out of the idea of pursuing this?
Well, no, the idea is going to be that we are going to work with your planner and the planning consultant to develop a plan that's going to meet the criteria of the zoning ordinance. So we're not going to build buildings that are too tall. We're going to stay within, which I think is at 35 feet, Laura, is that correct? Using 35 feet as the height criteria. Parking is parking. How many units are based on parking, right? Same thing with the commercial aspect of the building. We will meet all that criteria. We will redesign and do what we have to do to meet that. And the idea is going to be that what we come back to you with is something that you can look at and be supportive of. We don't want to be in a fight. We don't want to argue. We want to do something that's to the benefit of my client, and it's also to the benefit of the township. So that's why, to me, seeing it, when they first approached me on this, I said, it's the PUD. I see this as a PUD. We work hand in hand with the township to develop this. And that's what the PUD is for, planned unit development. And we don't throw the ordinance out, but it's a guideline. And we try to make the best solution for that using all the criteria that we have. And so we're just trying to get to that point to start that process. So that then you can see what we can do with that property.
Laura, under the current zoning, if they were to, what would they be entitled to build in terms of the number of housing units as a matter of right without having to come for approval?
You mean a parallel plan?
Yeah.
Well, that's a complicated question because if they were just to use the existing zoning today with the lots that they have, you would wind up with what's out there today in those couple lots with a single-family home. If you were to do something like combine those lots, demolish the greenhouse, which they've already invested significant funds in to rehabilitate, and perhaps do a cluster housing option on that and go through that approval process and seek that, they could perhaps do a denser configuration of single-family homes. There's no parallel plan to speak of because they're not required to have one at this stage. But it would likely be just single-family homes. Whether or not that's marketable at the corner with or without the greenhouse is, I don't know, a little outside this conversation.
Different question, yeah.
The applicant has proposed a development, a request for a development to the township, and that's really the matter at hand.
As far as the, say, 68 apartment units there, how would that correlate to our zoning ordinance? Would that be like R2A?
Yep, that would be the multifamily zoning district.
So outside of the commercial area that they're proposing, it would be like rezoning from R1 to R2A if it weren't a PUD with
Correct.
the commercial. That's a jump. Okay.
The way that the ordinances are written today does present a challenge in terms of them seeking a PUD because you can't have a PUD over multifamily. It has to be a commercial, and it can't even be the C1. So if the C1 designation, local commercial, was available to them, you know, they've asked to do that, but it's not because you can't have a PUD over a C1. So they're really within the confines of the ordinances that were written, you know, many years ago.
But they would have, if they were, excuse me, if they were to be granted the permission to move forward on this, could the whole site be developed as C2?
Well, they would be presenting the PUD, which would be a mix of those uses. And that's where the township has some security over how that property will be developed. If this was a straight rezoning to the C2 and it was approved, they may have great intentions to develop it in the next year, but they could also turn around and sell it to someone else, and that person could theoretically, under the C2 zoning, you know, propose a special land use, a bowling alley, a theater, a hotel, motorcycle sales. Because they've offered to do the PUD and to have a mix of local commercial, multifamily, and keep the greenhouse as part of that, there's some predictability in what that PUD would look like, and knowing that it would revert back to the R1 if it did not work out, if the PUD was not approved. So it's not just opening the floodgate to all the C2 uses, which I think is not in the interest of the township and what you would want to see at that site, but a tailored development through a PUD that was less intensive could be appropriate.
So there is no risk of having the entire site developed as a C2.
Correct, correct.
And the sparse doesn't qualify as the commercial for the PUD, the commercial use that's required for the PUD?
They would qualify as that.
So they would need additional commercial though on the corner as well?
No, they wouldn't be required to, but they have a desire to do a mixed use building at that corner. So whether or not that's office on the first floor or like a chiropractor, is still something that would need to be flushed out during the PUD.
But so with the conditional rezoning and the PUD, they need to have C2, some sort of commercial. And the spars they couldn't just have spars and then all residential on the rest of the property?
They could.
They could.
But in
But
order
don't
to do
want to.
this, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, but they don't want to.
Yeah. In order to do this project, it would be rezoned, a conditional rezoning to C2 with an overlay of a PUD on top of that.
Exactly.
Plus, would the PUD remove the restrictive, the non-conforming use of the greenhouse?
It would.
That currently exists?
It would, yes.
What
That
could
would-
happen if the spars greenhouse closes? Like, could that then go to residential or a different kind of commercial use in there at that site?
Good question.
That would be something that you could write into the PUD, what allowable uses, would be included elsewhere on the site. But if they were proposing to do something like demolish spars in 10 years, they would have to come back to the township. They would be amending their PUD.
But they could open up a different kind of a store there, like maybe a small grocery store or something like that within the spars building or some other use?
Conceivably, if it was allowed under the PUD and if they had the parking and could meet the other requirements.
Thank you.
Since you're not quite sure what direction you're going to go with on this, how did you even come up with the current plan of, the number of apartments and parking? And
Well, obviously,
is that your general goal, in other words, to
yeah,
approach
see, we
this?
can maximize it too, right? But knowing the corner is really a bad place to live. But as part of doing a mixed-use development, that was why the idea of doing, professional office on the first floor and then having apartments up over the top of it. I do have some pictures of a similar development that's in Ann Arbor like this, where that's exactly what they did. Did a mixed-use building at the corner of Maple and I can't think of the other street, and then apartments behind
Is
it.
it Miller and Maple?
Yes, Miller and Maple. So the idea is that that building buffers the residential from the high traffic corner, right? And that's the same concept here. And then with the parking being where it is, again, it's buffering the residential, and we did, large green areas between it and the residential, and they'll be heavily landscaped. And as you can see, we're looking at maybe doing a walking path or something like that around it to give just some more ability for the residents to do what they want to do. So that was just kind of how the first time we looked at this, we were looking at like 2 buildings or 3 buildings. And then in talking with your planner, coming up with some different ideas of maybe we can do this and have some different ways of softening how the site impacts the adjoining neighbors. With the corner is just the corner. It's just a busy corner, and it does, would you want to buy a house where your backyard backs up to Joy Road or Lily Road right there? Probably not. So it would make it really tough to sell. Whereas this, being a multi-use building, provides some different uses that could then buffer the rest of the site. The owner has a landscape business, and he's using Spar's greenhouse as part of his landscape business. So that's, to him and his partner, that is just a huge thing for them to have. Now to be able to grow their own plantings that they're planting, all over the area as he runs his landscape business. So they don't anticipate that going away. They're improving it and making it more efficient than it used to be. And like Laura said, the PUD, would be that we're keeping the greenhouse. If this all got approved and they decided to close the greenhouse and do something else, we'd have to come back before you, because that PUD says you're keeping that greenhouse. We can't change it. If we change it, or if we take the corner building and say, you know what, we're going to make it a 3-story office building, we'd be back here before you again, because we've changed the nature of the PUD. So this is where we think we want to go with it. We're not exactly sure of shapes and sizes and things like that, but it's all going to be within the ordinance.
I guess it's important to stress, I understand the desire to know what this is gonna look like, but we're just not there. Even these renderings here are not part of the request for the conditional rezoning. This could change based upon the discussions with the planner, based upon how the township planning commission, the board of trustees ultimately views the PUD. But we're not there. I totally understand the curiosity as what does it look like and perhaps the hesitancy of some of the people, but this is simply a concept at this point. Again, we're requesting the ability to request. That's it. We don't even get to the point of being able to give you that conceptualization in your mind until we get the conditional rezoning. Otherwise, there's no point in even proceeding in any capacity.
But
I
if,
just wanted to stress that.
but to that point though, if the concept is unpalatable, then what's the point?
You will reject, then my client has wasted a bunch of time and you have rejected it and we understand, but we can't even get to the point of being able to attempt to work on that unless we have the conditional rezoning because the ordinance requires us to be at a C2. So the point is if we don't try, then it doesn't ever change. I mean, that's your township is what it is because people have tried. We're simply trying to say, give us a shot, that's all.
I have a hard time with it because in essence, you're asking for parcels that are R1 to basically be rezoned to R2A and C2, which is a huge difference than what these residents have been living next to for, I don't know, a long time. I have a hard time stomaching that, so I'm not in
But
favor
we're
of
not
that.
asking you to rezone.
You know, but I gotta say, I also look at it, that corner, it's also been kind of an eyesore for the township too. And they're the owners of the property and they want a shot to say, hey, we got an idea, we think that would make that work. I don't know that it will. I don't know that that is the best use for that corner or what real potential for development there is on that corner, even residential, that would make any sense. But my thought was, okay, you want to spend the money and take a shot and show that it's a worthwhile project that would benefit the community and would address the concerns of the surrounding residents. I think I was the only one that voted in favor last time, and I would do so again.
Yeah, I mean, we respect certainly your right to develop the property, but we also respect the right of the residents that we try not to disrupt what they're used to or whatever is decided to put on that property, that it's complementary to it. You must have some business plan. So let's say, for example, this was approved tonight, or the recommendation, and then you go through the whole PUD process and it's determined that 3 floors is too much and it should go down to 2. I'm not asking you if that's a financial viable alternative for you, but certainly you must have considered that possibility, have you not?
We haven't, I guess, to a degree, thought that far in advance. We've looked at what we think we can do. We've looked at what we think this will cost, $16 million, to go through the planning process, a couple $100,000. So that's money that they're spending. And it's all got to work with, obviously if you don't build a building as big as you thought, it doesn't cost as much, right? So maybe it's not 16, maybe it's 12. But, we've looked at some things like that. But again, how much do they want to keep paying me to keep doing things that we're not even sure we can do because we can't even get a PUD to pursue that?
Do you have anything to add, Mr. Bennett?
Yes. The conditions for the rezoning must come solely from the applicant. The conditions must be in writing. If what I'm hearing is accurate, then it would appear that approval of the PUD development plan would also have to be a condition. Otherwise, it would revert back to residential. And also, there should be a time limit on completion or approval of the development plan by the board. Under the PUD ordinance, it's 1 year. They might need a little bit more than that based on the fact that they need the conditional rezoning first. But the conditions must be in writing or else they're not going to be enforceable. And they have to come from the applicant, not from the township.
Right.
So do we have that?
So has something like that been prepared?
What do we put on the application?
Yeah, the applicant did submit a letter similar to that effect. I don't believe it contains the timeline. So that could be adjusted if the applicant wanted to resubmit that and volunteer that condition.
Is that different than the project narrative from April?
Yeah, I believe so.
I guess to me, the issue I'm struggling with is that, is it appropriate to have apartments directly adjacent to an established single-family residential neighborhood?
Guys,
Yeah, folks, you'll get a chance to add your perspective, and it's very important, but I'm just, as a member of the planning commission, I'm telling the other planners how I see this. I struggle with that. If it was townhomes along the northern border, and if it was 50 feet away from the property line, such as we have on the Plymouth Walk development, where we have townhomes along the eastern border, and I looked at the plans again today, and there's a 50-foot offset from those townhomes to the property line of the existing development. That might be something that I could look at the other benefits, which have been articulated, improving the site, so forth. That might be the basis of something that I could consider or support as a first step for this. But having apartments that close to a single-family residential established neighborhood is an issue for me. And this is really what we're talking about. We're talking about rezoning, and to have that kind of rezoning, I'm struggling with. Obviously, I want to hear what other people say.
that was kind of my point, Tim, that if ultimately you don't think that you would support this project for that reason, then what's the point of going to that step? Because the outcome wouldn't change in the end.
And not only that, the applicant spends all the money to develop.
Spends all
the
kinds of
proposal.
money in the process.
Yeah, with the understanding, with the risk that it wouldn't be approved.
Because I mean, I think you make a great point, very excellent point. Should they get a shot at it? I mean, I think it's a really valid point, but I struggle with it ultimately in the end.
Yeah.
And it was
I get your
previously
point
denied.
on that, Bob. I mean, but I guess I'm not there yet on the issue of whether or not the apartments make sense or don't make sense. I know there's, a lot of emotional feelings on that point, but I guess I was willing to hear the arguments for that. I haven't heard the arguments in full either for or against that yet on this, and I guess I'm willing to hear those. But your points are well taken if you think that it's highly unlikely that, rental units are going to make sense on that, and we're going to go down a road that's only going to end up costing them money. That doesn't do anybody any good either, so that's a valid point.
And this has already been denied back in April. And the use has not changed. Like their rendering has changed and their idea and concept has changed, but the use that they're asking for, the PUD has not changed, and that was denied, 6 months ago?
Any other comment? Do you have any more comment? Do you have any more comments? I'm going to ask the public for their comments here, and then we'll probably bring you back.
I know Laura mentioned the current master plan. The future master plan under consideration lists that corner as multi-use. So 2 years from now, you come back and say, well, your master plan says it should be multi-use. So we actually have to wait for that to be adopted. We're just ahead of the game is all. And
Well, we're going to review the proposed master plan, so that might even change it. That's,
could.
that's, just like you, we're still,
you know, part of what you asked is,
right.
when you look across the south side of Joy Road, what do you have? Heavy commercial buildings. You have an airport at the southeast corner. You have a greenhouse on the east, but that property is zoned multifamily. So for what we're wanting to do, it fits within the area because we are buffering that heavy commercial district from residential. Hence SPARs, hence the multi-use building. That's the reason they're located where they are. I mean, obviously SPARs is existing, but we are softening a commercial district in another community from our community. And then across Lily Road is multifamily. So we are not that far out of the woods in terms of what should go there.
Well, that being said, though, right now these residents have a buffer of some open space at SPARs and some additional residential homes.
But it's not their property. That's the
No.
thing, that is the one thing to remember.
Right, it's not their
It's
property.
not their property, so the developer gets some rights too as to what they would like to do. And again, we think that we're doing something that enhances that corner from what it is currently.
well, as we said at the beginning, we recognize your property rights and we recognize the rights of the residents too. And we hope to get to some agreement that everyone can accept.
And that's what we're just trying to start the process of.
Okay, well, we'll take some comments from the public and then we'll call you back. So again, as I said earlier, we'll call you up. You can just line up at the podium, give us your name, and there's a sign-in sheet there. We ask you to be clear, concise, cogent, and most importantly, civil.
Dennis, did you say there was a petition?
Yes, there is a petition. Do you know?
I don't have it.
Oh, you don't have the petition? Oh,
I have a copy of it.
okay.
Hello, my name is Wendy
No,
Hart.
wait, just one moment.
Yeah,
Just one
okay,
moment.
go ahead.
I didn't count the number of signatures.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, we're getting some information, but
Okay, I have something to hand out
Sure.
if you want to pass that down. So, my name is Wendy Harless. My property is the northern border to this proposed development. So imagine if someone purchased the 3 single-family homes directly adjacent to your home and wanted to replace them with 3-story apartments and a parking lot right next to your backyard. That is the reality that I am facing. The properties being considered for rezoning had been zoned as R1 residential for decades. Changing them to commercial is a huge leap and does not fit in with the existing neighborhood, which is all single-family homes on that northwest corner of Joy and Lily. I'm passing around pictures to show you their proposed, what they want it to look like, does not fit in with my house or the other houses on Lily. This request to change the zoning from R1 to C2 came before you back in April, and you denied the request because it does not fit in with the current master plan. Now, the architect today said he wants to jump right ahead to 2025. You are jumping the gun because the 2025 master plan has not been approved by anyone yet. And as Dennis said, it could change. So you're jumping the gun. On page 62 of the current master plan, it says the plan should discourage spot zoning of office and commercial land uses. Recognize that a long-standing goal of the master plan for land use has been to avoid locating commercial uses at every intersection of major roads. And also on page 57 of the proposed 2025 master plan, it says the same thing. Avoid locating commercial uses at every intersection of major roads. Commercial development should not be located in any area which could negatively impact residential developments. On page 55, it says favorable missing middle housing typologies. Of the residents surveyed, 65% said they would prefer a bungalow court or a small single-family home. Nowhere was the concept of an apartment complex with mixed-use retail supported by the residents. At the October 10th, Board of Trustees meeting, Trustee Kermy spoke about how Plymouth Township is missing mid-sized homes for retirees to downsize to. He offered as an example of what could be built here at the corner of Joy and Lily, a development like Pineway Courts over at Hines Drive and Gilbert. That would conform to the current R1 zoning and fit with the master plan on record. If it is zoned R1, it will have single-family houses all down the south side of my property, just like it does on the north side of my property. The developer also said nobody wants their backyard backing up to a major road. They just built a bunch of single-family homes on Jug Handle, and all of the backyards go right up to Jug Handle, which is a major road. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next.
Is it possible to put the project benefits back up on the screen?
I can't get the screen on.
That from the previous presentation, or no?
He's trying.
Bob's working on it. I can wait and let somebody else go.
My name is Christy Piku. My family and I reside at 9001 North Lily Road. When we purchased our home 3 years ago, we relied on the residential nature of the surrounding area and safety of the existing community. We were excited to call Plymouth Township our home and felt confident in our investment. Today, only one house stands between my home and the future of the Spars property, and I can assure you it is not a bad place to live, as the gentleman mentioned earlier. Not much about the proposal by the new owners of Spars has changed since they were here in April. They are still requesting a change in zoning to develop mixed-use buildings that will increase density in the area and have a lasting adverse impact on the safety and character of the surrounding community. The dramatic increase in density by hundreds of people either residing or doing business in the area will most definitely lead to increased traffic, increased crime rates, and destabilization within the community. Homeowners next to the Spars property will also be forced to neighbor parking lots, bright lights, signs, dumpsters, deliveries during all hours, and other various interruptions. The owners of Spars are proposing more than just a change in zoning. They're proposing a destructive change in the quality of life for nearby homeowners. As it stands, the land is occupied by the Spars greenhouse and 3 single-family homes, and it's zoned R1 single-family residential. The already adopted 2015 master plan supports the R1 zoning of the property. Future land use in the 2025 master plan has not yet gone to the public for comment, been voted on, or approved. Development and improvements to the area are inevitable and welcomed by residents. However, we remain in opposition to anything other than single-family residential homes that conform with the current R1 zoning guidelines. It is the desire of residents who live next to this property every day to enjoy a community that is a harmonious extension of what we already call home. Single-family, single-story homes like those built by Menard Builders, Toll Brothers, and DJL Builders would be enriching to the area. It would be powerful to see the new developers take the path of least resistance and partner with local builders who already know the community and provide the type of housing desired by so many. Unfortunately, I do not feel confident that individuals with backgrounds in landscaping and banquet halls will enhance our community by way of property development. If this property is rezoned, a dangerous precedent will be set. Residential land is not historically rezoned commercial within Plymouth Township. It is not the responsibility of the township to rezone residential property to commercial to satisfy a national demand for mixed-use development. It is also unfair for adjacent homeowners to pay the price by way of decreased property values and diminishing safety to satisfy incoming developers. I ask you all what corner property near a residential neighborhood will be considered for rezoning and commercial development next. I sincerely request that you consider your valuable residents' opinions and deny the proposal for rezoning before you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, we will request that you don't applaud or boo anyone because that deters free and open discussion. We've been called on that before, so please try to adhere to that request. Thank you. Okay, Ms.
I know that you have the project benefits in your packets, so I don't think they can come back up, but so I'll just ask you to refer to what you have. But the eligibility criteria for the PUD requires a recognizable and material benefit to the ultimate users of the project and to the community, where a benefit would be otherwise unfeasible or unlikely to be achieved without application of the PUD option. And I would argue that all of the stated project benefits are achievable by developing this land within the R1 designation, which I also hope was recognized when the property was purchased by the developers, that it was R1 and should be maintained that way, in my opinion. I did prepare some other statements, but I just wanted to talk about those because they came up tonight. So I'm Kimberly Zolke. I live at 42570 Revere Avenue. I submitted a letter to the Planning Commission for the previous meeting where the initial request for rezoning was made. And at that time, I requested that the commissioners deny the application and to retain the R1 designation. I would like to thank you for providing time to both the residents of our neighborhood and to the developer to present their ideas and their concerns, and for critically considering the arguments that led to the recommendation to deny the rezoning application. I also appreciate the developer's attention to the comments that the residents of our neighborhood made and to commend them for revising their plans. But even with these changes made, the proposed plan remains out of touch with the character of our neighborhood, and perhaps more in accordance with the Ann Arbor Road corridor, where a mixed-use building could achieve connectivity and walkability with the existing developments. We implore the commissioners and the developer to think big by building small and to invest in more single-family, one-story homes that fit with the current zoning standards, the character of our neighborhood, and the housing needs of our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dennis, hang on a second,
Yeah.
I gotta reboot the system.
Oh, okay. Hold on, we're gonna just have to wait for a moment. We're trying to get the AVs things working. Just an approximate. While we're waiting, I just want to make a note here that we did receive a petition from this area, your neighbors, about 72 people, with the statement on top of the petition that said, we, the undersigned, are concerned citizens who urge the Planning Commission to deny the application on conditional rezoning of the property commonly known as Spars Greenhouse, located at 42510 Joy Road.
From one of the speakers.
Now, something went wrong and we switched over to the podium and back. Something went wrong.
Who gave us that lady?
That was the first speaker.
Oh, Wendy. Okay, this is from Wendy Harris.
Give me my name. My concern is the parking for this project here. He's talking 68 apartments, which means you need a minimum of 68 parking spots. Probably most of those units are going to have 2 people in them, which means you're going to double that parking. You have the commercial parking also, not to mention the visitors coming over to see these residents. My concern is the overflow parking, which is going to end up in our neighborhood, with those occupants of those vehicles cutting through our properties to get to the property, to their apartments. And that's why I have to say.
Okay, well, let me just tell you something. We're not going to be having to discuss the site plan. We try to stay away from that. I know that's difficult to have this kind of discussion without getting into it. But I was raised the same concern internally. And so this very early conceptual plan shows the 68 apartments. If you multiply that by 2, because there would be maybe 2 cars per apartment, that comes out to 136 parking spaces. But they are providing 168 spaces. So there are 32 more spaces that could be used for that commercial building and SPARs.
I don't think that area is big enough to fit 168
Well,
parking spots.
Again, we're not talking about site plan, but I understand your concern. I had the same concern as well. But we're not looking at site plans tonight. We have to look at the use of the property.
I don't think they'll be able to do it, but
Okay.
Well, I would like to bring up about the creek again. Now, I know they've been saying about I don't know if it's a retention pond or something like that, but I don't see how that's gonna make a whole lot of difference. With all that concrete, the parking, and going right into the area where I live. I've got an area where the neighbor across the creek, his tree has fallen onto my property. Now, so far I haven't, worked up the nerve to go tell him, you gotta do something about that tree. It's gonna block. See, this is the thing. That creek, nobody is able to clean it. And when you have this going on with all that concrete, I don't know where you're gonna put that water. It's gonna go right in the creek and it's gonna go right into my basement. And I don't wanna have to pay for that problem. When we had that 8 inches of rain back about a month ago or whatever it was, you remember J.C. Penney, they had flooding in their place. And I don't believe the creek runs along that way. But so what do you think is gonna happen if we have some rain like that? And you got this parking lot with all that concrete, where's it gonna go? It's gonna go in the flipping creek, So that's my biggest concern. And then also just the traffic. You're talking about you're gonna redo Lily? Is that really gonna happen? Are they gonna be able to put this in and then we'll think about it later and then just say, oh, well, you're just SOL. Just move, if you don't like it. Is that what we're gonna be told? So that's it.
Okay, thank you.
no one would ever say that. That's offensive.
I'm Jimmy Allen. Always get gravelly voiced in here. We live at, my wife and I live at 91, here it goes. 9181 Hackberry, which backs up to Tonkish Creek. I gotta do what?
Talk closer.
Is this close enough? Okay, I heard it mentioned this will increase property values. Not for us. It might increase the commercial property values, but it's not gonna increase people in my subdivision. And then we're gonna have the lights and all this from the apartments. We already, at the end of, at Postoff and Hackberry, we already have apartments there. On the east side of Lily Road, we got apartments from my side, Postoff, all the way down to where, basically across the street from Spars. How many apartments do we need? Our subdivision is gonna be surrounded by this, and like someone mentioned, okay, they're talking about putting in those businesses or whatever with 2 floors of apartments above that. That's all that more traffic coming. How's that gonna improve the traffic? It's not. I thoroughly oppose this proposition, and I don't even know why we're here. It was turned down once by this commission, went to the trustees, it was turned down, and now we're back. They're gonna sugarcoat it and come back again. Are they using a tactic, if they keep this going for quite a while, that the crowd's gonna get smaller? There's a lot of people in my neighborhood They have kids, they can't come. They would be here, they can't come. I don't even know why we're here. I mean, how many times do we have to come back for this because they change a sentence or, oh, then we'll do this to that particular site? It's not gonna work. I'm opposed to it. Thank you.
Just to clarify, it was not turned down by the Board of Trustees. The Board of Trustees remanded it back to us to look at it. The applicant made some changes, so, we're required to look at it again. So, yeah, okay, no.
Just sign in first. Hi, I'm Sharon Phillips, and I live, I'm gonna have the same thing here. It's catchy. I live on Tucson, which is a little dead-end street. My back, we are right next to the property that Wendy's dad owns, so we thank you, our Township's Planning Commission, for letting us come again and speak and voice our opinions. We obviously are still very concerned about the effects the proposed plan will have on our neighborhood. The main reason the plan, I believe, was denied in April was that it didn't provide an appropriate transition between the development and our neighborhood. And at that time, a building plan was not provided. We were given somewhat of a definition and a plan at the Board of Trustees, so I'm kind of going on that. I know we're not supposed to discuss those plans, but I believe it is most definite that the height and character of the structures will not be in harmony with existing patterns of the adjacent properties and the general planning area, as stated in Principle 5 in the PUD option eligibilities. What many of us would prefer and see as a great benefit to the township are one-story single-family homes or condos with attached garages to create that harmony and make our township more desirable to live in. Plymouth Township does lack housing for empty nesters and that wish to downsize or young couples that are just starting out. Many of the residents are forced to move out of the township into cities like South Lyon that has several developments with ranch-style homes. PUD Principle number 6 states that traffic to and from the site will not be hazardous or adversely impact abutting properties or conflict with the normal traffic flow of the general area. As mentioned several times prior, this continues to be of grave concern to our neighborhood due to the horrendous traffic backups we face throughout the week today. Section B of Principle 6 states that the township shall consider the relationship of the site to major thoroughfares and street intersections. With both proposed driveways of the development being so close to the busy intersection of Joy and Lily, we foresee increased traffic volumes and accidents. And may I finally mention PUD Principle number 7. The intensity of uses associated with the proposal and such noises, vibrations, odors, glare, reflection of light, heat, hours of operation, and other external effects which would normally be a product of the proposed uses shall be compatible with the existing land uses of the abutting properties.
I'll give you just another couple seconds here. Go ahead. If
Okay.
you're almost done.
And shall ensure that the stability of the orderly development of same as indicated in the future land use plan and adopted master plan. With my kitchen window facing spars, I am deeply concerned with the light pollution from headlamps of the cars, since the parking lot is designated to be near our properties. Additional light pollution will be created by the parking lot and the two to three story
If you could
building
just
lights.
highlight, so we got the idea about the light pollution. Are there other concerns that
Okay.
you could just summarize?
Just with the increased amount of vehicles and trash bins, new odors could pollute the air. We've chosen to live in our house for the last 44 years. There's a reason for that. We have always felt safe and proud to be a resident of Plymouth Township, where the people are a priority. We hope you will continue to make the people of the township your priority, as stated in the logo on your website. And once again, sparse 2 to 3 story, multi-use loft buildings proposal. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's John Sidor. I spoke back in April. Everything that I said back then has kind of been covered once or twice, and the people ahead of me covered majority of what I wanted to say also. But backing up to the water, you're taking a 5-acre piece of land that's basically greenscape, it's trees, and you're putting, we had what, 3¼ inches of rain when everyone's backyard's flooded. Well, it also backs up into the sewer system because our storm sewers go into the creek. So when the creek floods, the end of our cul-de-sac was covered over with water, as well as behind my house, 2 houses over, basically is where there's another storm sewer, there's a swale going there. That rose up. It was a pond in there across 2 houses, all the way in the back. You could, kayak through it. A couple, light pollution with 3 stories, definitely. Now, the walkability that they're putting through on their project review for the site plan, it's all walkable. It's not walkable if you're only walkable in that little area. There's no sidewalks up and down Lily and down Joy Road. So how's it walkable? Would any of you like to, within 100 feet of your backyard or your house, love to have a 3-story apartment building there, blocking everything? They're also said that one of the benefits is that the 3-story apartments will block all the noise and heavy industry that's on the other side of Joy Road. Well, if it's going to block it, why are you?
You're getting into a site plan issue that we're not
Okay,
considering.
my only statement was,
I know you're concerned.
if that's what they're doing, and this was offered, because 6 months ago in April, nothing was offered, except verbally a little bit. And then this came out with the Board of Trustees meeting.
Yeah.
So the only thing I'm saying is kind of an oxymoron to say, this is going to block all the noise for you. So who's going to want to go into a noisy apartment if this is supposed to be an upscale apartment complex? I hope the Planning Commission again denies it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I was back here in April, a lot of my neighbor friends here. And when the architect and the owner first got up on this podium and said, this is what we want to do. And I raised a question. Do you have any prints, blueprints, speculations on anything? No, we have nothing. All of a sudden, we're going to put 2-story and 3-story apartments. I live at 906 Old Tucson. I'm on a dead-end street with my wife. It's beautiful. Look out my kitchen window and see the greenhouse. There's land next to me. I do not want to stare at a 3-story building. No way. And I hope you disapprove this. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, so we'll it's not a public hearing, but we'll close comments from the public. And if the applicant can come back. Now, I know what the township looks for, when there's runoff water off of a site, but perhaps you can, if you want, or otherwise I'll ask the planner to describe for us what you plan to do about water runoff.
Well, Wayne County will require us to do stormwater detention. In other words, we cannot let the water off the property that exceeds the natural agricultural rate at which occurs right now in the green areas. There currently isn't any detention occurring on the property. So all the paved areas and buildings, all the water runs most likely out onto Joy Road and down to the creek. We will have to detain that, and we're proposing to detain it under the paving. Big pipes go under the parking lot that will hold, in Wayne County, we're required to hold a 100-year storm. and that's what it'll be designed to do. And then it will let that water out at a rate that is no worse than what's already there, or even better, actually, because it will be better than the paving that's there. So that's, I mean, that's all part of going through the planning process. And so when we come back to you, we will have some conceptual ideas for that. And once we have a preliminary approval, we will then fine tune all of that with Wayne County. And we will have to meet their criteria. And that, their criteria comes from the State Eagle Department. And we can't do anything different than that. We'll never get approval. So we will meet that criteria.
Are there questions or additional comments from the commission? Okay, I have a question for Mr. Bennett. So this document that you described for us earlier, we have not seen it. Would you suggest that the planning commission have an opportunity to look at it before we took a vote tonight? I didn't catch it, I'm
I
sorry.
think that would be prudent.
Okay.
And again, these conditions have to come strictly from the applicant with no input from the township.
So with that information, any reaction?
Your recommendation is that we postpone this until we have that? Or could we still deny it without having that at our place?
Either one of those. Now, the only time you're going to need the conditions in writing ultimately is if the Board of Trustees approves the rezoning. If it doesn't get that far, the conditions will not be needed. However, the conditions should be part of the application.
So it's your comfort level. Would you agree, Ms. Howell?
I defer to Kevin Bennett's opinion.
But just to reiterate, are
Well-
we able to make a motion to deny tonight based on the information we have?
Yes.
Okay.
Before we make a motion, I'd like to speak to, again, this issue of the appropriateness of this level of density next to a single-family neighborhood. I don't believe the subject of missing middle housing was raised tonight, but I do believe it was mentioned in the meeting with the board. When we look at Plymouth Township and say we need additional missing middle housing, I'm sorry, we're not taking into account, I don't believe, the fact that in the last year and a half, we have approved 2 major multifamily developments. The Courthouse Grill, Hillside Overlook, and then, of course, the Plymouth Walk Elks Club. Between those two, we're adding 491 multifamily housing units into Plymouth Township. And I believe that takes our percent of multifamily homes from 23% of the township up to about 26.7. If we then factor in the fact that there's a large piece of vacant land on North Territorial, west of M14, and south of the manufactured housing Plymouth Hills development, that is also zoned multifamily, and it's a big piece of land. It looks to me like it's at least as big as Plymouth Walk. Presuming that does get developed as multifamily, that's going to further increase the percentage of multifamily homes in Plymouth Township. So I think our level of willingness to look at other multifamily development households now, we're at a higher standard than we would have been before these other developments would have been approved. So that factors in, again, to my thought process is this level of density next to an existing established single-family neighborhood that would need to be rezoned, is that an appropriate thing to do? That's what I'm struggling with.
You know, I would add a thought to that too, because what you've talked about are high-end multifamily, and that's a lifestyle choice. There's a lot of implication that brings an undesirable element, and that's not the case with these developments. These are, you know, it's a lifestyle choice. Empty nesters or young professionals, they don't want a house. So I kind of reject when I hear people make implications that if there's apartments somewhere, it's going to bring, you know, people that are undesirable. And we've heard too much of that, I think.
I didn't hear it mentioned this evening, though.
Pardon me?
I didn't hear that
Not this
thought
evening,
this
but we
evening.
have
I
in
did not
past.
hear that.
I didn't either. And for the record, I totally agree with you. You know,
Yeah.
these are really nice developments.
Yeah.
But again, I'm just struggling with, do we need this level of density right next to an existing
Yeah.
single-family neighborhood that, in the land adjacent to it, is currently zoned R1?
What were the percentages that you quoted there?
Right now, and I'll present the numbers behind this when we have our master plan discussion. But right now, the way I figured it, looks like 23% of the township homes are multifamily, and would go to 26.7 when we add in the courthouse grill in the Plymouth Walk developments.
If I may, I just want to reiterate that what you're talking about and the comments almost entirely are about site plan approval, which is not why we're here. And I just want to reiterate that this is for a conditional rezoning, not the site. Everyone will have their opportunity to attack everything they want to attack once there's a site plan, but to look at renderings that are being provided right now, which are extremely preliminary, and making decisions on a conditional rezoning as if we are presenting a site plan is simply not accurate. If the Planning Commission wishes to reject and intends to do so because you don't like the site plan, I would just like to make sure that that's on the record so that we're clear why, because that's not the purpose of
Again,
this.
my issue is multifamily appropriate next to single-family residential? It's not based on the site plan. That's my concern, but I'm only one member here, so.
No, I understand, but the PUD, but that's also getting into what the PUD actually will say. And we don't have that. We're not presenting that. We don't have a site plan for you to see that, what it will look like. I understand conceptually how it's zoned. I understand your point, but if it's how it will affect, nobody here can say that because we haven't even gotten to the point where we can present to you a PUD.
Well, I would have to disagree with what you've said. We've tried to, and you've heard me this evening say several times, we're not here to look at a site plan. This highly, I've even referred to it as highly conceptual, and it's subject to negotiation or whatever. In fact, I informed that with the public when they were here. And Commissioner Boyd's comment is not, as he had said, not looking at the site plan, but he's looking at, we're trying to diversify and have housing for all residents and not exclude anyone. So he's just saying, well, this is where we are with multiple family housing. Question is that enough? Is it too much? Is it too little? That's what we're sort of struggling with. We're not taking into consideration what a highly conceptual site plan provides us. We're just looking at the use. So I want to make that clear. Any other comments or reactions from anyone?
Well, again, I would just reiterate, you know, my thought on this, and that's, you know, give them a chance to present their case. I don't know the answer on the density of whether or not we have enough, you know, apartments and so forth. I mean, I would actually defer to you guys on that because you've been here longer and you're a little more familiar with it. But putting that aside, I just kind of look at this as, all right, I look at that site, and so if I look at it, take away their site plan or what they're kind of schematically proposing, does a planned unit development based on the criteria, might that make some sense on this particular corner? And my gut feeling is it could. I don't know that it would, and maybe it wouldn't involve the density of the apartments. It might involve maybe something else. But I think I think it's worth letting them, as the owners, take a crack to try to persuade that, they've got a good idea for this corner that would benefit everyone. And they may fail on that, because I think a lot of the folks have raised a lot of good points of concern, with respect to the density and so forth. When they hear 68 apartments, that would have an initial reaction to that too. But I think we need to take a look at it, and so we're in this sort of dilemma, the cart before the horse. We kind of want to know what that plan development is before we kind of move forward on it, but yet that's not the way the criteria is kind of set up, at least the way I'm reading it. So that's kind of just where I kind of fall out on this. I would give them that chance, but I do think what I hear tonight, they have a real uphill battle on it.
I can't help but be reminded of somewhat of a thorny issue, and that is what we did with the proposed Meyer site, where they had requested a withdrawal and a chance to react to what we've given them. Now they gave us, some site plan to kind of look at, and that ended up not in a real good situation so far. So while I may or may not be in favor of what's being proposed conceptually here, I hate to deny them the chance to make their case. You'll have to make it, of course, before the Board of Trustees and eventually to us if it proceeds down that path.
So can I will just clarify it for myself and hopefully for the audience, is that if we approve their request tonight, that's just basically giving them the opportunity to move one more step towards developing what we all are looking for.
Assuming the Board of Trustees, because they're the ultimate deciders. Yeah.
But there's a point that both the Board of Trustees and the Planning Commission can still deny the project later on. This is just giving them the opportunity to try to at least put it in front of us, because we're all questioning that, is that at least we have the opportunity at that point to look at it and go, yeah, that's way too dense, or yeah, there's too much light and things like that, correct? Or am I wrong?
That's my understanding. Laura, do you want to chime in on that?
That's correct.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to understand, if you vote on this, does that mean that it is?
Well,
If you vote on it, it does rezone that piece of property?
we don't rezone it. It's all at the Board of Trustee level. Okay, we had already the public comment. Yeah.
I guess I'm also concerned with that if this goes forward, we approve this, that it sets a precedent for other corners in our township, like the northeast corner of Lily and Joy. And if we're tearing down single-family residential homes, that could spread to Sheldon and Joy Road on any of those corners. So I'm really concerned too that there's other areas in our township where we could see this type of application coming forward, and this would be precedent.
Yeah, I agree. It could. Do you have any other legal viewpoints that you need to express or want to express?
I think there's a lot of corners left in the township.
So where do we stand?
I'm ready for a motion.
Okay, now you have to have, do we have to have findings of fact on this? Yeah. So are you ready to do findings of fact? Okay.
I think so.
Mr. Commissioner,
Yeah.
one thing I would say is that if the commission is going to vote to recommend the rezoning, it should be contingent upon proper conditions being part of the application before the Board of Trustees.
And do we have to identify what those
No.
conditions are tonight?
No.
Applicant has to.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So
I
we
gotcha.
can't approve it, basically.
Yeah.
We can either postpone or deny. Is what it sounds like to me.
Yeah, same here.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I move that we recommend denial to the Board of Trustees of PC application number 2474, conditional rezoning from R1 to C2, as the request is not consistent with the 2015 master plan, and the proposed zoning is not consistent with the properties to the north and west of the subject area, which are zoned R1.
Second.
Okay, do we, any more discussion on this? Can you repeat that again? I want to make sure I understand.
Okay, sure. So I move that we recommend denial to the Board of Trustees of PC application number 2474, conditional rezoning from R1 to C2, as the request is not consistent with the 2015 master plan.
Well, wait, that's the part. Is it inconsistent?
The C2 is, because it's the future land use is medium, residential medium density.
And where did you get that from?
Right here. In office, which is different than C2.
Oh, future from the 2015, okay. Residential medium density. Laura, what is, how do you define medium density housing versus high density? Is there a definition for that?
That is spelled out in the master plan, and it's single family.
Oh, it is single family?
It's still single family, yeah.
But it would include office.
Yes, yeah, there is a portion that's planned as office for these parcels.
But C2 it takes into more than office.
Correct.
Yeah, it's more, you can have drive-in, or not drive-ins, but drive-throughs.
Retail.
Yeah, retail.
And then the proposed zoning is not consistent with the properties to the north and west of the subject area, which are zoned R1.
Okay.
So not adjacent with the, not consistent with the adjacent parcels.
The key for me is that the inconsistent with the master plan. Okay.
So just to clarify, a yes vote means you recommend denial. Yes means no,
Yeah.
and no means yes.
Basically, yes.
Okay.
No does not mean yes. No means you'd have to make a motion.
Now I'm all confused. I want a maybe. All right, I think we should have a roll call vote. So yes means no. And
Correct.
no
Okay.
means yes. Okay.
Let's see, Dennis Sabalski,
Yes.
Tim Boyd,
Yes.
Kendra Barberina votes yes, James Berry,
No.
Gail Grieger is excused, David,
No.
and Bob Dorshevitz.
Yes.
Okay, so that's 4 yeses and 2 nos,
Okay.
so it passes.
All right. There's your answer. It means we're recommending denial of it to the Board of Trustees, but they have to have the same thing.
Hold on, it goes to the Board of Trustees though, so there's another step. I don't know when that'll happen.
When that will be?
No, we don't know. We don't set that agenda, but you can always look. All the agendas are posted on the township website, usually by Friday noon of the meeting before that it occurs. So our meetings or the Board of Trustees meeting. No, that's the way, that's how it goes. And you can also sign up where, when there's a change in the website, you can sign up for that and you'll get an email. Yeah, look, check out the website. Okay. Well, I think we carefully considered this.
We really did.
I feel.
Twice.
I feel good about it.
Do you wanna, so we can keep going?
Okay, let's move on to the next item, application 2466, Serafon Automotive.
I said that was.
want to hit the gavel?
Okay. Any further discussions? If you could just take it out in the hall, because we still have business to undertake here. Thank you.
Disconnect as opposed to shut it.
Yeah, yeah.
Disconnect your screen as opposed to just pulling it HDMI.
Okay. You better try to fix it. We'll just wait a minute while Bob tries to get his thing fixed. Thank you. Okay, all right. All right, you want to walk us through the planner's report? Yeah, you. Mhm.
Okay, thank you, Commissioners. This application you are also familiar with. This is the Sarah Fund Automotive at 14760 Northville Road. This application has also been revised several times. With the latest concept plan being provided in your packet, this has been professionally prepared, and it's not a site plan. This is the special land use. So again, we're not getting quite into the site plan requirements. They would be required to submit a site plan at a future date if the special land use is approved. And the situation that's happening there is that there is that front building, the smaller auto repair facility, that's been in existence and is permitted to remain. Originally, the applicant just wanted to do some minor facade improvements to their building, but then it kind of snowballed, turned into more and more. And they decided that they also wanted to enclose the rear building, which is a former car wash establishment, and do minor auto repair as well in that building, and then to also use a portion of the lot for auto sales and have a dealership license. So the existing auto repair can remain in that front building really no matter what. That can continue to stay. It's the expansion of the rear building, the enclosure of that facility, and the addition of the dealership on the property that is before the commission for consideration. And those are special land uses in the C2. So this is a general commercially zoned property and has been for decades. Hence the establishment of the car wash and the auto repair facility. So the question before the commission is whether or not the site could be designed to minimize impacts to the residential that is now to the south and east, and could act as a transition between the M14 freeway, which is directly to the north. The applicant has made some strides toward showing how this use could be adjacent to the residential. If you look on their concept plan, the landscape plan, they've provided a green belt to the south and to the east that proposes a berm, and they've indicated several evergreens along this area. There would need to be more landscaping than what they're just showing, but in concept, there is space available with the berm to add a year-round evergreen screen on their property.
So Laura, which page are you on?
That's on their landscape plan.
Okay. Did they submit these like this? Did they submit the plans this small?
Yes. Yes, they're not, technically, they're not required to submit the full scale because it's not a site plan.
Okay, because these are really difficult, if not impossible to read.
Yeah. They're a little tiny. You can see that whole dotted area along the south on their landscape plan. And they have relocated the dumpster to the north property line, so along M14, and that's also where they proposed their loading area, closer to M14, so as to move things away from the southern or east property line. They've also proposed some screening along the front of the property to kind of beautify Northville Road. One, I think, improvement that they've made is that they're not proposing any pole lighting within the entire site. It would be strictly building mounted lighting that would be fully shielded. So there's not going to be really the concern of glare or just a bright lit parking lot adjacent to this site.
That was one of the big concerns last time.
Yeah, there's not going to be 20-foot or 30-foot pole lights scattered throughout the site. It's going to be building mounted. The buildings are only one story, and they're going to be fully shielded. So that would, I think, help reduce the impact of this site. They're also, in terms of security, they're also doing cameras, and the rear portion of the site, from that rear building beyond, will be fenced and gated. So they're not concerned about theft from their perspective, and needing the additional site lighting. So I think there's several items that would be great for clarification. The applicant does not appear to be here this evening. But this would include clarification from them on landscaping and screening, their hours of operation, the timing of deliveries, so as a auto repair facility, when those would be made, clarification on the site security. So we're recommending that there be clarification on those before the commission would make a final recommendation. This has been tabled until March of next year. However, without the applicant here tonight, I don't see how there can be much resolved.
Is anyone here to talk about it?
If there's any questions or concerns, I suppose, at this time that the commission has, I'm happy to relay them to the applicant, since they're not here, and we can prep them for another future meeting.
Did you want to talk about the tree?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest problem I have is that, like, Kendra, I have a hard time, reading the diagram. I'm not sure what I'm looking at and everything. So it would be helpful to
I
have
couldn't
them.
read it when I had good eyesight
Right.
20 years ago.
I think Tim has a comment.
Did you have a comment?
Yeah, I'm, having spent the early years of my career in the retail sales business for one of the OEMs, I look at this and my first question is, where would the used vehicles be displayed on the site plan? Laura, do you know?
From my understanding, the used vehicles would be stored in the front portion of the lot.
So they would be in front of the building that's next to Northville Road? Or would they be along the side to M14, or both?
Yes, along the side of M14, the parking that's directly adjacent to the front building, that is customer parking. All of the vehicles that they would have in that front area would have to be fully operable. They cannot be awaiting repair. There cannot be any storage of parts or
But cars
junk
for sale,
vehicles.
that's where they intend to.
Yes, oh yeah, along the northern part.
Okay.
I'm
northern
assuming the answer to this is yes, but I have to ask it anyway. Does the township have restrictions on used vehicle sales lots in terms of no banners, no balloons, no?
Yes.
Okay, so he would be subject to any restrictions that a new vehicle dealer would be subject to in terms of the display?
100%.
Okay.
And he wouldn't have lighting, you know how?
Searchlights?
Well, not the searchlights, but when you go by a car dealership,
Spotlight.
they often have
Those
lights.
Spotlights or whatever.
Yeah,
searchlights, yeah.
to highlight the cars, but he's just going to have building mounted lighting?
Correct.
Yeah.
I also was looking for some clarification. I'm going to pass out here, this is a Google Maps print of the site. I printed this off 3 or 4 days ago, so I'm presuming it's still current. And if you look at this, you'll see that there's considerable amount of woods or trees along M14, and then particularly important, adjacent to the newest portion of the condo development, which is to the right of this site along M14, you'll see what appears to be a fairly thick group of trees. And I think when we had our last discussion on this, some of the residents spoke to the fact that when they bought their homes, all these trees were in and then they were removed. So I guess just a couple questions. It's unclear to me, did the applicant actually make an application to remove the trees? And was that application approved by the township before all the trees were removed?
No, there's two things about the trees. One is that there were a number of just scrub vegetation on the site, which they are allowed to remove at any time, and don't need to seek permission. There were several trees that would be considered regulated trees, right? They're greater than 8 inches and of a quality species. Those were removed, and they have been noted on their plan, and they are being held accountable for the removal of those trees. That was an error on their part. They would need to provide replacement value for those.
Isn't there a maximum amount of what that replacement value is, isn't it? Because I think we ran into that with another developer that took out trees without permission.
They would need to provide, if you remove a tree without permission and it's intended to stay, then it's a 1-for-1 replacement. So they would be responsible for that. And whether or not they could accommodate that on-site or would need to do something off-site is yet to be determined. It would be, finalized during their site plan.
But there's no fine?
A fine for them?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
Some communities do that.
Yeah.
Thanks for this, Tim.
So, no, do we need to take any action? What was your? Do we have any feedback to give back to Laura to pass on to the applicant?
Isn't that twice now they haven't shown?
Yeah.
Well, as I understand it, the last meeting, they were here and they had to leave for like an emergency. So I'm not sure what happened tonight, but that is my understanding of the past.
So we don't need to take action tonight.
Attorney Bennett, do they need to table this again since it was already tabled till March?
Is the special use application administratively complete?
Yes, but the applicant isn't here.
I believe they can take action or they can table it.
Okay. So
I would say that I think the applicant's made quite a bit of progress in terms of defining what he wants to do with this latest material we've been given. I certainly have a much clearer idea of what the level of achievement needs to be from how it looks right now to where it would be if we approve this. So even though we would be tabling this and we still need more information, I would recommend that we thank them for the progress they've made so far.
Was notice required and given to the property owners within 300-foot radius?
when this application originally came before the commission, yes, the notice was sent out and in the paper. As a courtesy, we do send a email to the HOA president of the Gateways Association.
That it would be on the agenda tonight?
And we send them the packet, yes, we do.
I'm surprised there's nobody here from that.
Yeah, that went out last Wednesday or Thursday.
Well, I would
Because
be
there
in
was a
favor of
large
tabling it
crowd
with,
when we did discuss it. And the HOA president was here, I remember.
Yeah, and they had promised the applicant had promised to meet with the HOA to try to come to some consensus, and they never did.
No, the guy, the HOA guy was here, he told us, well, the only meeting they had was out in the hallway after.
He didn't follow up.
And then I brought them tonight. I thought there'd be more of a crowd. They handed me some pictures, but it doesn't make sense to me. The pictures are all numbered.
Is that package you picked? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got
From
some.
back then.
Yeah, it's here. Do you want to see them?
No, I've seen them. I've got them in my office.
Oh, okay, yeah. So I brought the pictures because I wanted some clarification. There was one of the pictures was like a car or a truck up on no tires.
It had no context.
Right, it had no context, and there must have been something because they were numbered, but we never received the key.
Right. No legend.
It's a scavenger hunt.
Yeah.
So I can move that we continue to postpone till March? Mr. Chairman, I move that we postpone PC application 2466, the Sarah Fund Automotive Special Land Use, to continue to postpone it until the March 2024 meeting.
support.
Moved by Commissioner Barberina and supported by Commissioner Berry to postpone application 2466 until March of 24. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. And Laura, I have a question. It's sort of a master plan question. So in your report on consideration number 1B, you talk about that it's, without reading through the whole thing, that you question how could this site be developed? What are the alternatives according to what's in the master plan? So is that something we should try to address when we review the master plan again?
Yeah, I think there are a number of these sites that are challenging because of their adjacent uses that deserve a greater look.
Have you been able to identify those over a period of time, or is that going to require research?
Yeah, there's a number that come to mind. I think a lot of them have to do with where there's a border juxtaposition.
Oh, I'm sorry, with what?
Where there's a border, so whether it's a freeway or it's another
Okay.
community, and there's kind of that mix of uses.
Okay.
Even the property that Commissioner Boyd, you brought up about the one that's along M14 that's zoned multifamily, that rather large parcel. I think it's a good question if multifamily should be, kind of just, it's almost like it's just shoot in to this corner along a good portion of the freeway, and that's where multifamily is designated to go. Is that equitable? Is that the only place that multifamily should go when it's kind of just cut off from everything? Is that making for a quality place where people want to live? So there's sites like that, I think, that definitely warrant some more attention.
Well, the comment that was made earlier today about people wouldn't want to live on the corner of Joy and Lily, which could be true, but also I can't help but think about Rolling Oaks, where those homes are right along M14.
The house is right on North Territorial and back,
Yeah.
$2 million house right on North Territorial and back.
Okay, and let's see. Next is miscellaneous business, and I think Commissioner Barberini would like to make a motion or for a resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to make this proclamation for John Itzel. He was a commissioner on our planning commission for a number of years. This is a resolution of appreciation. Whereas John Itzel has served on the Plymouth Township Planning Commission for over 5 years, having been appointed on April 11th, 2017, and whereas John Itzel's dedication, ability, and talent have been invaluable to the execution of the duties charged to the Charter Township of Plymouth Planning Commission. And whereas John Itzell's professionalism, dedication, talents, and personal commitment to seek planning excellence, best practices, and advocacy of sound planning principles have contributed immeasurably to the continued progress and orderly development of the Plymouth community, and have been invaluable to the execution of the duties charged to the Chartered Township of Plymouth Planning Commission and to the citizens of Plymouth Township. And whereas the success of the democratic form of government depends upon the voluntary leadership and contribution of time and talent on the part of its citizens, therefore be it resolved that the Planning Commission of the Chartered Township of Plymouth herein expresses recognition and appreciation for the service and support rendered by John Itzell to the Planning Commission and the people of Plymouth Township, and extends best wishes to him for the future. Resolution passed this day, October 18th, 2023, at Plymouth Township, Michigan.
Is there support?
Support.
Moved by Commissioner Barberina, supported by Commissioner Boyd to approve the resolution recognizing John Itzell's contribution to the Planning Commission. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Do you have anything, Laura? Anybody else have anything?
I have a
Just,
question.
Yep.
You know, to underscore that, John's a good friend, and he was a great contribution to the Planning Commission, and we're gonna miss him.
Yes,
Very much.
absolutely.
Yep, have him back anytime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, he will be
John
missed.
also brought as a landlord himself, he brought the knowledge of,
Yeah.
you know, the rental market and so on and so forth, and that was really helpful to me.
You have something?
I just had a question on this, the Town Hall Speaker Series. If we all go, is it a quorum? Do we have any issues with that?
Boy.
We just can't sit together.
Like, what should we do if we all want to go to this?
Pretend we don't know each other.
It would be like if you attended a chamber event or something and everyone was there. I think it's okay. You're
Okay.
not talking, just don't sit together.
Any issues? No?
Are you all planning on attending?
We're not supposed to talk to one another.
You just can't deliberate. You can meet in social.
So we need to sit apart from each other, right?
Sit apart? Okay. Yeah, 'cause it seems like an exciting thing to go see.
Yeah.
I'm excited about it. I just wanted to make sure I knew
Yeah.
how to behave. Okay.
Okay. Anything else from the commissioners? Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
Welcome to Dave.
Oh,
Yeah.
Welcome.
thank you.
Yes?
Yep, welcome.
And I think you know who everyone is. I do. Okay. All right, is there a motion for adjournment?
Mr. Chairman, I move we adjourn at 8:55.
I have 8:57.
So 8:57.
Okay, moved by Commissioner Barberina, is there support?
Oh, yeah, support.
Moved by, support by Commissioner Barry, I think you supported it. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, we're adjourned.